All right, and this is 2 podcasts on a Friday. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it.
Which that's 2 days in a row we've done 2 podcasts, right? We did 2 yesterday. Yeah, we did the mail call and we did something else yesterday. I can't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure we put out 2 yesterday.
I'm sure it was wonderful.
Oh, I'm sure it was magical. You're wonderful. But if you don't know who we are the Podcasting Dead. I'm Justin.
And I'm JP.
And obviously from the name, we talk about The Walking Dead a lot. Though we've mentioned it a few times that we will probably be changing that name just because there's so many other things we want to do alongside Walking Dead discussions.
We're branching out. We're blossoming. We're doing wonderful things.
You're inspiring, JP. Say that again.
I'm trying to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Oh, I could hear you then. I'm just trying to adjust your levels.
Oh.
Because you have so many good things to say. You were a little quiet.
I have a couple.
Wanted to make sure that you were able to be heard. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I guess.
All of that is just me trying to check JP's levels.
Oh.
No, we've got an interesting theory we want to talk about. It's not our own theory. I've read it online, maybe comicbook.com. I cannot remember where I saw it, but it is an interesting theory. But I've got to warn you, this particular podcast here, this one, not the channel, but this single podcast is more for people who have read the comics, are up to date on the comics, and also keeping up with the show.
So we're going to be soaked in spoilers.
Saturated. Don't light anything.
All right.
You might set it off. But yeah, so we're going to do a lot of comic spoiling and a lot of Walking Dead show spoiling. This is just kind of some food for thought for those that are keeping track of both. So you have been warned. I don't really want to get fussed at in the comments section if you learn something you don't want to learn. So turn away now if you don't want spoilers. So moving forward, issue 187 of The Walking Dead just recently dropped. But the issue before that, 186, we lost a pretty big player.
Yeah, and we didn't just lose him, man. He
lost him very tragically.
Yeah,
of course, we're talking about Dwight.
That was wild.
And so what we're going to talk about in this video is just our thoughts on the theory that Dwight's death in the comics could be reflected in the show, but not with Dwight. So Dwight and Daryl are kind of, they share similarities from the show. They take things from one another from the show to the comic. Daryl's the reluctant leader of the Saviors, just like Dwight was the reluctant, because Daryl's not obviously in the comics. So, some people wonder if Maggie being at the hilltop does not mean that what it's going to come down to is Daryl trying to start a revolution, which I could totally see Daryl doing to, free people, and Maggie having to put Daryl down. What do you think, JP?
It's interesting. I kind of wonder if Maggie's going to kind of fill the Michonne role, like kind of getting comfortable at the Commonwealth, got her little son. But if that were
so
the
in
case,
this role, you're seeing her filling more the Michonne role than the Rick role.
But then who would fill the Rick role?
The Rick role.
The Rick role. Rick role.
That is interesting. Who would fill that Rick role? Do you think they would just kind of combine it together with Michonne and Rick into Maggie?
I guess they could. That'd be kind of weird.
Yeah, it would. I mean, you would think they would actually use Maggie kind of as Rick and have Michonne just be Michonne. You know what I mean? Like go to the Commonwealth.
I guess that begs the question: will Michonne find her daughter at the Commonwealth?
That's
it. Hasn't been like 100% established in the comic that Michonne's or both her kids died, right?
I honestly can't remember.
It's been so long since I read.
I really can't remember.
I feel like an idiot. We're gonna reinvestigate that, but
I can't remember. I know she had 2 kids. I don't know if it's just. I don't know. I feel bad.
Dude, what if they get to the Commonwealth and Maggie is the governor? Maggie's filling Pamela's shoes.
That would be cool.
I mean, there's so many possibilities. We're just entering into uncharted water.
Well, in this show, we know Michonne had a son. We know that, but did she ever? I don't think she's mentioned in the show having any other kids, right? She had a son because we saw him in the flashbacks. We know that her boyfriend, and we know that there was some animosity there. The child died, but all I remember Michonne saying is that she had a son. I don't ever remember her saying in the show that she had a daughter. So I don't know that they'll be able to play out that storyline from comic to show. You know what I mean? And when they wrote the show, that was in like season 3, I believe, 3 or 4 that we learned that. I'm pretty sure it was 3. But when we learned that, you got to keep in mind where they were in the comics. I mean, that was years and years ago. So at the time, Michonne hadn't found or caught up with any kids, and we just assumed her kids were probably gone and dead, victims of the apocalypse. So when they went back and had this revelation in the comics, I wonder if the show writers were like, crap, we're not going to be able to do that because her son's obviously dead. Unless somehow they figure out a way to make him survive. But
yeah, man, like I'm a little fuzzy on the on all that stuff.
I remember the show pretty well, but the comics, man, you got to realize things came out in 2003. I mean, they've been out for a long time.
Yeah.
Which I know that's not when all of this was going down, but
yeah, it'll be interesting to see like who fills what storyline. How
do you think you could see Daryl taking that? I could. I mean, I could see.
Yeah, I think Daryl will definitely fill the Dwight role.
I could see Daryl getting to the Commonwealth and seeing the injustice there and not being happy with it and wanting to inspire some kind. I mean, like just look at how he wanted to end the sanctuary. Daryl's not above just going in and finishing it and just doing what needs to be done,
Right. So, I mean, the question, like Maggie is going to be there with her son. Daryl rolls up. The question is, like, who is he coming with? What's, like, the away team look like as far as the, who's going to roll up there with him?
I'm wondering if they'll probably keep the same Eugene thing because they have been talking about radio towers and stuff, establishing, like, radio connections. So, some people were worried that Eugene is going, again, spoilers, but like we said, man, we said from the beginning, this is mainly aimed at people who have read the comics and watched the show or people who just don't mind comic spoilers because we're spoiling the shit out of this.
Yeah, we are.
But Father Gabriel's death, one of the most, in my opinion, just like one of the worst deaths in the comic. He like falls down that ladder, breaks his ankle, and then gets stabbed by Beta and just gets hollowed out by walkers hanging upside. Some people were thinking that Eugene was going to take that role, but I think that it's kind of like Glenn's death in the comics. I think that it's gonna be Father Gabriel. It's gotta be because it's just iconic. It's it's not quite as iconic as Glenn, obviously, but it's something everybody remembers. It's just a very morbid, even more morbid than typical deaths. So I think that's gonna happen. But maybe that Eugene will get the radio and everything set up. It's kind of like Father Gabriel's brainchild, right? So, but Eugene will get it, and I think that's how they'll establish with Commonwealth. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe they don't know Maggie's there. So many ways this could go. They establish communication, and when they get there, Maggie's there. And they're like, oh, crap. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what if Michonne fills the Rick spot? Like she goes up there with Daryl, and Daryl's wanting to start all this rabble rousing, and she's kind of siding. With Maggie's kind of making her see reason, and she ends up having to put one in Daryl's head.
Yep, that's the best way I could see it going. Because
God, how heart-wrenching would that be?
Kind of give Maggie Michonne's spot in the comics, and then give from comic to show, and then give Michonne Rick's spot as far as the leadership up there. And that would be interesting. But let us know what you think. Again, this isn't something that we've gotten figured out. It's just a cool little theory that I saw online that Dwight's death in the comics could be a signal of things to come for Daryl, which actor Norman Reedus has said that he wants to be in the show to the last episode. But, ultimately that's not up to him.
Right.
That's up to the writers. So we know, it seems like he won't be leaving due to being bored with the show anytime soon, and I'm sure he's enjoying that steady paycheck and the fact that he'll always be, a well-known actor. But I don't know. They still could kill him. It'll be interesting to see if it plays out. That would be tragic, man. After everything Daryl's been through, to be gunned down by Michonne.
It would be. I mean, what would be even worse? What if he rolls up there with Carol and she's the one that puts him down?
Oh, I don't. And see, I don't know that they could do that. And I just say that because you got to find someone whose relationship Daryl's would be somewhat similar to, like, Rick and Dwight had been back and forth in our time, not the comics, but in our time for a good year or two now. Right. They've had several times where they've run in and gotten quite irritated with each other, and it wasn't like Rick did this because of that, but at the same time, they weren't best of friends like Carol and Daryl would be, which would make it even more heartbreaking if Carol did have to do it. I don't know that Carol could do it, to be honest with you, is what I'm saying. I think you got to find someone who Daryl has a rocky relationship with. I mean, like Michonne, he hadn't really been tight with Michonne and them, and Michonne might kind of blame him for what happened to Rick. Like, that's even though they don't, there's obviously no straight up animosity, but still, Michonne could kind of hold a grudge against Daryl for what happened to Rick. That could get brought up later. They might have an argument, and she'll tell Daryl this is still all his fault that Rick's gone, and yada, yada, yada. So that makes, because I just couldn't see Carol doing it.
No. Well,
but it would make it way more tragic. I just don't know if that would be true Carol. I believe Carol would almost be willing to let Daryl shoot whoever,
Pamela or whoever,
and then face the consequences, then kill him to avoid a conflict. Because it's Daryl, it's her Dare Bear. Well, Daryl is Rick's Dare Bear. What would he be to Carol? Would she call him Dare Bear too? Are they kind of like a polyamorous thing?
I don't know.
My Dare Bear.
But I could definitely see Michonne putting him on ice.
That would be very tragic, and I don't know though, man. So, what do you think? Let us know your comments below. Or do you think that Daryl's still just covered in plot armor, and there's no way he's ever going anywhere unless he's ready to leave because he's Daryl Dixon.
Time will tell.
We'll see. But let us know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe, like for more Walking Dead content. Again, this is just one of those things we read. We figured we'd talk about, discuss. It's an interesting thought. I don't know if they'll follow that or not. Just because Andrea died in the comics obviously didn't mean that Michonne was going to die. But it's something you obviously, if you read the comic and watch the show, you think about. So let us know your thoughts, and we'll discuss further if need be.
As details develop.
Yeah. In the meantime, we'll catch you next week. I hope everyone has a fun and safe weekend. And this is our second podcast of the day, so I'm kind of running out of fuel here.
Yeah, same here. I will. I'm not going to have any fun this weekend, but I will be safe.
So aren't you going to have any fun?
No, I'm not going to have any fun.
You are.
We
got to do our conspiracy podcast, so you're going to have fun.
No, yeah.
Are you saying you won't have fun with Jesse and I?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
If you don't normally listen to any of our podcasts and you've stumbled upon this, we are getting ready to start and we're not going to call it this, but we're terrible. If you go back and listen to our videos, you'll see we're terrible at coming up with names, but we are not going to call it this, but we're calling it, it's kind of like a code name right now, Truth Seekers podcast.
We're working on a title.
It's going to be on this channel, but we're trying to figure out exactly what we want to call it, but we're going to talk about it. We actually have a little sample that we did just because JP was telling me something crazy about something called the Ninth Circle. I had never heard of it, and he was like, dude, we didn't know it's a podcast about that day. So we were like, let's talk about that. It's kind of like a sample, but we're going to have our friend Jessie joining us. She'll have an interesting take on things, and that starts hopefully sometime next week. So,
yep, we're working on it.
We'll get it to you. So, like, subscribe, more stuff on the way. Have a good weekend. As I said, JP, you will have fun, and we'll catch you guys next week.
All right.